You have two choices. My father's voice, sharp as broken glass, crackled through the speakerphone. Sign the house over to your brother, or we will drag you through a legal battle you cannot possibly win. The threat hung in the sterile air of my lawyer's conference room. I sat frozen. My mother, Susan, chimed in, her tone just as unforgiving. She understands what she owes this family, what she owes him. My mind flashed to images of me hauling drywall, wrestling with plumbing, my hair and clothes caked in paint while they scoffed at my efforts. I owed them absolutely nothing. In the background, I could hear the faint, expectant breathing of my brother, Leo, the golden child, just waiting for them to deliver my entire life's work to him on a silver platter. That familiar, suffocating feeling started to swell in my chest. The feeling of being insignificant, of being wrong simply for existing. They were preparing to steamroll me, just as they always had. But then, something shifted, something I never expected. My lawyer, Isabel Croft, let out a laugh. It wasn't a big, hearty laugh. It was a short, sharp, and utterly dangerous sound that sliced right through my father's intimidation. "What's so amusing?" my father demanded, his voice laced with indignation. "Before we get into what happened next, do me a favor and hit that like button, subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from." Isabel leaned into the speaker, her voice dropping to pure ice. "This call," she stated, "is being recorded." That phone call was the closing of a painful chapter. But the story itself had started 5 years prior. It started with a house. I was 28, living in Portland, working as a project manager. I was the responsible one, the quiet one. I paid my own way. My family, for the most part, pretended I didn't exist unless they needed a favor or felt the urge to point out my latest failing. My brother Leo was my polar opposite. He was the life of the party, charismatic, and a complete train wreck. By 28, he'd already flunked out of 3 different colleges, totaled 2 cars that my father had bought for him, and lived in a downtown apartment funded by our parents. He was their shining star, bursting with potential. I was just Chloe, the wallpaper. Then one day I saw a for sale sign on a street I'd always admired. The house was a 1920s craftsman, and it was an absolute ruin. The windows were boarded over, the front porch was sagging precariously, and the paint was peeling away in long, ugly sheets. The neighbors called it the disaster on the corner. My family was convinced I'd lost my mind. "You're actually buying that thing?" My father, Robert, asked, not even attempting to hide his contempt during our obligatory Sunday dinner, the only time they ever bothered to invite me over. "It's a teardown, Chloe," my mother, Susan, added, swirling the ice in her tea. "You're literally setting your money on fire. Why not get a sensible new condo, like the one we helped Leo get?" "I like it," I said softly. "It has good bones." My father barked a short, harsh laugh. "What do you know about bones, Chloe? You'll be on the phone in a month, begging me to bail you out of this mess." "I won't," I promised. Leo just shook his head from across the table, a smug little smirk playing on his lips. "Good luck with that, sis. Looks like a money pit to me. I bought it anyway. I drained my savings account to 0. The terror was nauseating, but underneath it, there was a tiny flickering spark. It was mine. My father was wrong. I never made that call. That first year was a living nightmare. The roof leaked, and I had to replace the entire thing. I got 3 separate quotes, chose the most affordable one, and spent my weekends helping the crew haul shingles up the ladder, learning how to tear away old, sun-baked asphalt. Then came the plumbing. A pipe under the kitchen sink burst, flooding the entire room. I remember sitting on the soaked floor crying for a solid hour. Then I got up, drove to the hardware store, bought a book on residential plumbing, and binged instructional videos online. I learned how to cut and crimp PEX tubing. My hands were a mess of cuts and bruises, but I fixed it. I taught myself wiring. The house's ancient system was a genuine fire hazard. I spent an entire winter snaking new wires through the walls, drilling through stubborn old-growth studs. I got shocked twice, not seriously, but enough to instill a profound respect for the power I was wrangling. I learned how to install outlets, light switches, and a new breaker box. I gave up everything. No vacations, no new clothes. I stopped going out with friends. My entire existence revolved around my day job and my house. I missed holidays. I vividly remember one Thanksgiving. My parents were taking Leo on a Caribbean cruise. They called me from the terminal. "You should really come with us, Chloe," my mother said, her voice dripping with fake cheerfulness. "All this work you're doing, it's not good for you. You're all by yourself in that dusty old house." "I can't," I replied, my voice muffled. "I have to finish sanding the drywall." I was covered head to toe in a fine white powder. "Well, suit yourself. Leo is so excited. He's going to try scuba diving." They chirped, and then they hung up. I went back to sanding the wall, silent tears carving paths through the dust on my cheeks. It wasn't because I wanted to go on a cruise. It was because they didn't truly want me there. They just wanted to remind me that my choices were wrong. They wanted me to feel bad for not being him. My house was the one place in my life where I wasn't wrong. It was grueling, filthy, and utterly exhausting work. But it was honest. When I built a wall, it stood firm. When I fixed a leak, the dripping stopped. The house never lied to me. It never pretended I was someone I wasn't. For 5 years, I poured my soul into that work. I resurrected that house from the inside out. I painstakingly sanded and refinished the original hardwood floors. I uncovered beautiful, intricate moldings hidden under decades of cheap paint. I tiled the bathroom floor myself. I built the kitchen cabinets from scratch with my own 2 hands. And through it all, my family never stopped mocking me. When they deigned to visit, my father would squint and say, "That corner doesn't look square." My mother would run a finger along a freshly painted windowsill. "Still so much dust, Chloe." And Leo would just lean against a door frame and laugh. "I can't believe you're still sinking time into this dump. I just got a new convertible, by the way." Then, the neighborhood began to transform. It happened quickly. Young families moved in. Artisan coffee shops and trendy boutiques started popping up. Other old houses on the block were being restored, just like mine. Suddenly, my street was the most sought-after address in the city. My house, the disaster on the corner, was now a stunning, restored 1924 Craftsman. People would literally stop on the sidewalk to take pictures of it. A local design magazine even asked to feature my kitchen. And with the neighborhood's rise, property values skyrocketed. My house, the one I had bought for next to nothing, was now worth a small fortune. And that's precisely when my family's tune changed. It was no longer Chloe's dump. It was now the family property. I remember the day the shift became undeniable. It was another Sunday dinner. I was 33. The house was finally done. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of peace. My father cleared his throat, a sound that always preceded a proclamation. "Chloe, we've been discussing something." I looked up from my plate. "About what?" "About your house," my mother said. A wide, artificial smile stretched across her face. "It's turned out so wonderfully. We're just so proud." A cold knot formed in the pit of my stomach. They had never, not once, been proud of me. "Thank you," I managed to say. "The thing is," my father continued, leaning forward conspiratorially. Leo is getting engaged to a wonderful girl, Sophia, and they'll need a place to live, a proper place to start their family. I just stared at him, my mind refusing to process where this was going, even though I knew. And you, my mother added, you have all that room. Just for one person. It's a bit selfish, Chloe, when your own brother has nothing. I set my fork down. What are you trying to say? We think you should give the house to Leo, my father said it like a simple statement of fact, as if he were announcing the weather. The shock left me breathless. All the work, all the sleepless nights, all the sacrifice, my home, my sanctuary. Give it to him? I finally whispered. Of course, Leo piped up, finally looking up from his phone. I'll let you keep one of the spare rooms. I'm not a monster. It's family property, Chloe, my mother said, her voice hardening. We supported you through this whole project. We helped you so much. You did what? I stood up, my hands trembling with rage. You did nothing but mock me and call it a dump. Don't you dare take that tone with us, my father snapped, his face turning red. We are your parents. You owe us. You have a responsibility to your brother. He's family. You're being incredibly selfish. It's my house, I said, my voice shaking. I built it. It's mine. The answer is no. I walked out. I just left them there. I could hear my father yelling after me, You'll regret this, Chloe. This isn't over. A week later, the call came. They had their lawyer on the line. They were making their threats. If you don't sign your house over to your brother, we'll see you in court. But they'd made a fundamental miscalculation. I wasn't the same quiet girl who had bought a broken-down house 5 years ago. I was the woman who had rebuilt it. I was the woman who knew how to stop leaks, run wires, and build walls. And I had my own lawyer, Isabel Croft. And when Isabel laughed at my father's pathetic threat, I knew they had just declared a war they were not prepared to win. They had pushed me one step too far, and they had absolutely no idea what I was about to uncover. A heavy silence fell over the phone line, and in that void, for the first time in my entire life, I felt the balance of power in my family begin to shift. The speakerphone was dead quiet. My father's bluff had been exposed. This conversation is concluded, Isabel announced, her voice as crisp as a winter morning. She ended the call. I just sat there, my hands shaking. They want to take my house. They're actually going to sue me for my own home. Isabel swiveled in her chair to face me directly. She was a woman of sharp intellect and zero tolerance for bullies. They're trying to intimidate you, Chloe. They're operating under the assumption that you're the same person you were a decade ago. They expect you to fold. I built that house, I whispered, the words catching in my throat. I put my blood and sweat into that house. I know, she said gently, and that's why we fight back. They want to talk about what you owe them? Fine, let's talk about what they have. Tell me about your family's finances. You mentioned they paid for Leo's college attempts, his cars, his apartment. Where did that wealth come from? My father has a well-paying job in finance, I explained. They've always lived comfortably, and they never helped you with the house? Not a single penny? A short, bitter laugh escaped my lips. Number. They never invested a dime. In fact, they told me I was wasting every cent I put into it. Okay. Isabel tapped her pen on her notepad. What about extended family? Grandparents? Have there been any inheritances? I flinched. It was an old, deep wound. My grandmother, my father's mother, Eleanor. She passed away about 12 years ago. And? Isabel prompted. And she left a significant amount of money to Leo, I said, my voice flat. I had buried this memory for a long time. She established a trust fund for him, $250,000. And for you? I looked down at my hands, clasped tightly in my lap. She cut me out of the will. That's what my parents told me. They said I had disappointed the family, that Grandma Eleanor was very upset with me before she passed. Disappointed you in what way? I don't know, I mumbled, feeling the old shame creeping back in. I wasn't Leo. I was quiet, a bit stubborn. I wanted to move to Portland on my own. I wasn't the daughter they envisioned. My parents said she changed her will right at the end. Did you ever see this will? Isabel asked. Number. I didn't go to the reading. My parents told me not to come. They said it would be too humiliating for me. They said they would handle everything. So you simply took their word for it? Yes, I said, feeling small all over again. Why would they lie about something like that? They seemed so sad for me. My mother even cried. She said, I just don't understand what you could have done to make her so angry, Chloe. And I believed her. I believed I was the problem. I had always been the problem. I thought about that $250,000. It would have been life-altering. When I bought my house, I was stretched so thin. I lived on ramen noodles for a year. I took on late-night freelance projects just to afford lumber. All that time, I believed Leo just got lucky, and I believed I deserved to be left with nothing. Isabel was quiet for a long moment, just observing me. Chloe, she said finally, did Leo receive his money immediately? No, I recalled. He got it when he turned 30. My parents said that was the condition of the trust. It was about 5 years ago. 5 years ago, Isabel repeated thoughtfully. Around the same time his spending habits really accelerated? Yes, the new convertible, the big trips. He and my parents went to Italy for a month. Isabel jotted something down on her legal pad. And now, only now, they're coming after your house. Now that it's worth a fortune. Yes, something isn't right here, Isabel said, her eyes narrowed. They feel entitled, Chloe, not just to your house, but to your success. And that level of entitlement, it usually has a paper trail. I left her office feeling unsettled. That night, sleep wouldn't come. I kept thinking about my grandmother, Eleanor. She had always been kind to me. She loved her garden and had strong, earth-stained hands, much like my own. I remember her telling me once, "You're the only one in this family who knows how to build something from the ground up, Chloe. Don't you ever let them make you forget that." Why would she have cut me out? Because you disappointed her, my mother's voice echoed in my head. I tried to push it away, but the question remained, a crack in the foundation of everything I thought I knew. The memory surfaced a week later, with shocking clarity. It was as if I was right back there. It was Leo's engagement party, 3 months before the blowout over the house. My parents had booked a private dining room at an upscale restaurant. Sophia, Leo's new fiancée, was there. She seemed kind, if a little overwhelmed by my family's loud energy. My father was giving a toast, spinning tales about Leo's big heart and untapped potential. I was at the far end of the table, quiet as ever. Leo was already drunk. He always got drunk at family events. He staggered to his feet to make his own speech. "To Sophia," he slurred, "and to my parents, who have always, always had my back. They knew I was the smart one, the real investment." My mother laughed nervously. "Oh, Leo, please sit down." "No, I mean it," he insisted, waving his champagne flute. He looked directly at me, a sloppy, cruel grin on his face. Even Chloe knows. She blew her inheritance, and I blew mine. But mine looks way better. Sophia looked bewildered. "What are you talking about?" "Our trust funds," Leo announced to the room, "from Grandma." I used mine for, fun. And Chloe, she spent all of hers on that dump of a house. Right, Dad?" The table fell silent. My heart seized in my chest. I couldn't breathe. I looked at my father. His face was pale, his expression thunderous. "Leo, you're drunk. You're not making any sense." "I am making sense," Leo slurred on. "You told me. You said we gave Chloe her share for the house. And this is your share. It's all fair, equal." "I never got any money," I said, my voice barely a whisper. The entire table was staring at me. "Sure you did." Leo laughed. "You just spent it on 2x4s. You already spent your trust fund fixing that dump, remember?" My mother shot to her feet. "That's enough, Ryan. You're upsetting your sister. You've misunderstood." "Chloe, he doesn't know what he's talking about." But my gaze was locked on my father. He refused to meet my eyes. He was just glaring at Leo with pure, unadulterated fury. Not because Leo was lying, but because he was telling the truth. They had told Leo a different lie. They told me I was cut out. They told him I had already received my share. The whole twisted lie cracked wide open. I stood up and walked out of the party without a word. I sat in my car for a full hour, just staring at the steering wheel. $250,000. They hadn't just let me struggle. They hadn't just mocked me. They had watched me struggle. They had watched me bleed and work and sacrifice. They watched me cry over a burst pipe. They watched me eat instant noodles so I could afford a can of paint. All while my money, my inheritance, was sitting in their bank account. The next morning, I was in Isabel's office at 8 a.m. sharp. "I need you to find my grandmother's will," I said. "The real one." Isabel took one look at my face. I hadn't slept. My sadness was gone, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. "I know just the person," she said. Isabel's person was an investigator named Marco Diaz. He was nothing like I'd imagined. He was a quiet, impeccably dressed man who looked more like an accountant than a PI. He was calm and he listened intently. We met in Isabel's conference room. I recounted the whole story, the engagement party, Leo's drunken rant, my parents' panicked faces. "I feel like I'm going crazy," I admitted. "I'm accusing my own parents of, I don't even know what. Theft?" Marco simply nodded. "My job is straightforward, Miss Henderson. I don't deal in stories. I find documents, and documents don't lie. You believe your grandmother, Eleanor Henderson, passed away in this county?" "Yes," I confirmed. 12 years ago. "And your parents were the executors of the will? Or trustees?" "I think so. They handled everything." "Okay," Marco said, closing his notebook. "I'll begin with the probate court records. The will should be a public document. I'll pull the trust agreements, and if possible, the account statements. I'll also review property and tax records." "Tax records?" I asked, confused. "Sometimes," Marco said with a glance at Isabel, "family finances get tangled. It's best to see the whole picture." He left. The waiting was the hardest part. For a week, I tried to live my normal life. I went to work. I came home to my beautiful, quiet house. But it felt tainted, like a crime scene. I kept running my hands over the walls I had built, thinking about the tools I'd bought, the windows I'd installed. How much of this was truly mine, and how much was built with money that should have been mine all along? I felt sick with self-doubt. Maybe Leo was just drunk and confused. Maybe I had misunderstood. Maybe my parents were telling the truth, and I really was a disappointment who was now descending into paranoia. Then Isabel called. "Can you come in?" Marco found everything. I sat in the same conference room chair as before, but this time, the table was covered in binders and stacks of papers. Marco sat at one end, Isabel across from me. "Marco," Isabel prompted. "Go ahead." Marco slid a thick document across the table. This is your grandmother's last will and testament, filed with the probate court 1 week after her passing. I picked it up, my hands trembling as I read the words. I leave my estate in 2 equal shares, to be held in trust for my 2 beloved grandchildren, Leo Henderson and Chloe Henderson. Each grandchild shall receive their full share upon their 30th birthday. Beloved. Not disappointed. She didn't cut me out. She didn't cut me out, I whispered. No, Marco said. He pushed another document forward. This is the trust agreement. Your parents, Robert and Susan Henderson, were named as co-trustees. What does that mean? It means they had complete legal control over the money, Isabel explained, her voice quiet and dangerously cold, until you turned 30. But they told me Leo got his money. I never got mine. That isn't entirely accurate, Marco said. He opened a large binder filled with bank statements from a trust account I never knew existed. Here is the account 12 years ago. An initial deposit of $500,000 plus interest. Here, 5 years ago, is Leo's 30th birthday. A withdrawal of $250,000 paid directly to him. He turned the page. And here, he said, is the rest. He pointed to a long list of withdrawals from my share. They began almost immediately after my grandmother died. Trustee fee, $25,000, paid to Robert Henderson. Management fee, $25,000, paid to Susan Henderson. Reimbursement for family expenses, $50,000, paid to Robert Henderson. Educational reimbursement, $75,000, paid to Robert Henderson. It went on, small withdrawals and huge ones, every single one signed by my parents and paid directly to my parents. By the time my 30th birthday rolled around, the account was empty. They had bled it completely dry. They had paid themselves my entire inheritance. They stole it, I said. It wasn't a question. They stole $250,000 from me. And interest, Isabel added grimly. But that's not the worst of it. Marco slid one last set of documents across the table. Tax returns. My parents' tax returns. You lived on your own after college, correct? Paid your own rent and then your own mortgage? Yes, since I was 22. Well, Marco said, according to the IRS, you didn't. Your parents claimed you as a dependent on their federal tax returns until you were 28 years old. I didn't understand. Why? For the tax credits, Isabel said, her voice laced with disgust. It amounted to thousands and thousands of dollars every single year. They told the government you were living under their roof and that they were providing more than half of your financial support. While I was fixing my house, I whispered, eating instant noodles. It all clicked into place. The trips to Europe, the new cars for Leo, their comfortable, easy life. It was all funded by me. They had stolen my past. They had built their comfort on my struggle, and now they were trying to steal my future, my house. Isabel's voice cut through my shock, sharp as a scalpel. Inheritance theft, Chloe, breach of fiduciary duty, and federal tax fraud. What they did isn't just wrong, it's a crime. I looked at Isabel, the fog of hurt and confusion in my head finally clearing. All that remained was a cold, hard clarity. I thought of my father's voice on the speakerphone. We'll see you in court. A horrifying realization dawned on me. Oh my God, I said. What is it? Isabel asked. They were so greedy, I said, the words tumbling out. They had already stolen $250,000. They got away with it. They thought I was an idiot who would never find out. I looked up at her, a strange sense of power surging through me. If they hadn't come after my house, if they had just left me alone, I never would have known. I would have spent the rest of my life believing I was a disappointment. I would have let them keep it. I stood up, no longer shaking. Their greed, I said, their insatiable greed is what will bring them down. They just handed me the weapon to do it. Isabel smiled. It was a true smile this time, a shark's smile. Yes, Chloe, she said, they certainly did. A week later, I was at my desk, leading a project meeting with my team. My life felt bifurcated. There was the normal professional Chloe, who managed schedules and discussed zoning permits. And then there was the new Chloe, the one who knew her entire life had been a lie. My office line buzzed. Chloe, there's a gentleman here to see you. He says he has a personal delivery. I frowned. I'm not expecting anything. Can you just take it for me? He insists on delivering it to you personally. He's waiting in the lobby. A cold dread washed over me. I knew exactly what this was. I excused myself from the meeting and walked out to the main reception area. A man in a cheap suit stood there, clutching a large manila envelope. My boss was walking past. Several of my co-workers were watching curiously. Are you Chloe Henderson? He asked, his voice unnecessarily loud. Yes, I said quietly. You've been served. He thrust the envelope into my hands, turned, and walked out. My face burned with humiliation. This is what they wanted. To shame me at my job, to prove that their power over me extended everywhere. My boss gave me a concerned look. Is everything all right, Chloe? Yes, I said, gripping the envelope. Just a family matter. I found an empty stairwell and sat on the cold concrete steps. I ripped open the envelope. It was a lawsuit. Robert and Susan Henderson versus Chloe Henderson. I scanned the claims, the words blurring with rage. Alleges that Chloe Henderson is holding family property hostage. Claims that Robert and Susan Henderson provided significant financial contributions to the purchase and renovation of the property. States that Chloe Henderson is exerting undue influence and causing severe emotional distress to her elderly parents. Lies, a mountain of audacious lies. They were claiming they had paid for my house. They were claiming to be the victims. They were painting me as a cruel, ungrateful daughter who was stealing from them. The old me would have collapsed into tears. The old me would have been terrified. But I just felt a chilling calm. I folded the papers neatly, placed them back in the envelope, and walked back to my desk. I finished my meeting, then told my boss I needed to leave early for an appointment. I drove directly to Isabel's office. I didn't bother to call ahead. I walked in and handed the envelope to her receptionist. She'll want to see this immediately. Isabel had me in her office 2 minutes later. I sat there, perfectly still, as she read through the entire lawsuit. When she finished, she set the papers down on her desk, and she smiled. That dangerous, beautiful shark smile. This, she declared, is the single stupidest thing they could have possibly done. They just put all their lies in writing and signed their names to it on a legal document. They served me at work, I said, my voice flat, in front of my boss and my colleagues. They're bullies, Chloe. They assumed this would be the final blow. They thought you'd get these papers, feel humiliated, and call them crying. You'd beg them to stop and hand over the house. So what's our next move? We don't defend, Isabel said, her eyes glinting. We attack. She picked up her phone. Get Marco Diaz on the line and start drafting a countersuit. I want it ready by end of day. She turned back to me. They want to play in a courtroom? Fine, we'll play. For the next 2 hours, Isabel dictated, and I listened in awe. She was a force of nature. Countersuit, Chloe Henderson versus Robert and Susan Henderson. Count 1, inheritance theft for the sum of $250,000 plus 12 years of compounded interest. Count 2, breach of fiduciary duty for their role as trustees of the Eleanor Henderson Trust, in which they willfully and knowingly defrauded their beneficiary. Count 3, unjust enrichment for using stolen funds to finance their lifestyle, including but not limited to international travel, luxury vehicles, and real estate. Count 4, fraud for the filing of false federal and state tax returns by claiming Chloe Henderson as a dependent. And for this frivolous lawsuit they just filed, Isabel said, tapping the papers, we are filing for malicious prosecution and intentional infliction of emotional distress. We will be seeking punitive damages. It was brutal. It was a precise, damning list of all their crimes, all their secrets. What happens when they get this? I asked. They will panic, Isabel stated. Their lawyer, whoever he is, will see our evidence. He'll see the will, the bank statements, the tax returns, and he will inform them that they are not only going to lose, but that they are also facing potential criminal charges. She printed the 20-page countersuit. They tried to use the law as a weapon, Chloe, Isabel said, handing me a pen. They thought it was a club to beat you into submission. We're going to turn it into a sword. I signed my name. The ink felt heavy, final. I was suing my own parents. They wanted me to be obedient, I said, thinking of all the years I spent twisting myself into pretzels to please them. Yes, Isabel replied. Instead, they got exposed. The countersuit was filed that afternoon. The silence that followed was deafening. The irate phone calls from my father ceased. The manipulative text messages from my mother stopped. Even Leo, who had been sending me passive-aggressive texts about his future house, went completely radio silent. They had the papers. They knew that I knew. The power had irrevocably shifted. The war had officially begun. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one who was afraid. They were. The silence from my parents and brother was a tangible thing. It was heavy, oppressive, the sound of people realizing the game had changed and they were about to lose. Their lawyer had our evidence. He had seen the real will, the bank statements from Marco, the proof of their lies. But the rest of my family, they were still in the dark. My phone began to explode with notifications 3 days after my countersuit was delivered. It started with my mother's sister, my Aunt Diane, the same aunt who always sent me a $10 gift card for my birthday while taking Leo on lavish ski trips. Her text popped up. Chloe, your mother is an absolute wreck. You need to call her immediately. What you are doing is monstrous. I stared at the word. Monstrous. Me, not them. I didn't reply. An hour later, it was my father's brother, Uncle Steve. He didn't text, he called. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. His message was a symphony of heavy sighs and profound disappointment. Chloe, this isn't how we raised you. This isn't what this family stands for. Suing your own parents over a house? Your father is a good man. You're breaking his heart. You're breaking your mother's heart. Family doesn't do this to each other. You need to stop this nonsense right now. Family doesn't do this. The phrase echoed in my mind. A small, old, wounded part of me whispered, they're right. You're the problem. You're the one creating all this drama and pain. For a fleeting moment, I almost buckled. The sheer weight of my entire family turning on me was crushing. It was the materialization of my lifelong fear, being completely, utterly cast out. They had always called me difficult, stubborn, not a team player. Now I was finally proving them right. I was the monster they always said I was. I sat on the sofa in my beautiful, quiet house, and I felt the walls closing in. The house was my sanctuary, but the world outside was a firing squad of my own relatives, and they all hated me. Then, the family group chat, a forum I usually kept muted, erupted. My cousin Sarah, Leo's #1 fan. I cannot believe what Chloe is doing to Uncle Robert and Aunt Susan. After everything they've done for her, everything they'd done for me, I thought. What exactly was that? Another cousin, Mark. She's always been jealous of Leo. This is just sick. Aunt Diane again. She's selfish, she always has been. She has that huge, gorgeous house all to herself and won't even help her own brother who's about to start a family. Now she's suing them? What kind of person does that? The messages flooded in, one after another, a digital lynch mob. They were all talking about me. Not one of them was talking to me. They were passing judgment based on the carefully curated story my parents had fed them, the story where I was the villain and they were the martyrs. I felt that old, familiar shame rise in my throat. I was so tired of being the bad guy, of being perpetually misunderstood. I considered replying, defending myself, typing out, but they stole my inheritance. They lied to me my entire life. But I knew it was pointless. They didn't want the truth. They wanted the narrative they were comfortable with, the one where Leo was the golden boy and I was the cold, ungrateful sister. My phone buzzed again. A new text, this time from my mother. Chloe, I don't know who this Isabel person is, but she has brainwashed you. You are destroying this family. You are destroying me. All of this over money. I never imagined my own daughter could be so cruel. Your father is having chest pains. Is that what you want? Do you want to be responsible for killing your father? My blood ran cold. The ultimate weapon, the final guilt trip. You are killing us. I thought of all the years I had spent contorting myself to win a single crumb of their approval. I thought of the holidays I'd worked, the dust I'd inhaled, the nights I'd cried from sheer exhaustion, all while they mocked me. I thought of them claiming me as a tax dependent. I thought of them telling me I was a disappointment to my dead grandmother. I thought of them funding Leo's vacations with my inheritance. And just like that, the shame vanished. The fear evaporated. All that was left was a cold, quiet, solid anger. It wasn't loud or screaming. It was the anger of a foundation settling into place. It was immovable. My phone buzzed one more time, the family chat. Aunt Diane, someone needs to talk some sense into her. This is certifiably insane. I opened the group chat. I saw all their names, all the people who were supposed to love me, who had never once stood up for me, who had never once even asked if I was okay. I typed a single simple sentence, addressed to all of them. They stole $250,000 of inheritance money from me. The proof is a matter of public record. I hit send. The chat went completely, utterly silent. The little typing bubbles never appeared, just a stunned, dead silence. They had no answer for that. The truth was too simple, too ugly. It didn't fit their preferred story. A strange calm washed over me. I wasn't shaking anymore. I looked at the name of the group chat, Henderson Family. It had never been my family. It was a club that had never accepted my membership. I opened the chat settings. I tapped Leave Group. My phone fell silent. I sat in my living room, the afternoon sun streaming through the windows I had installed with my own hands. I looked down at those hands. They were strong. They had built this. I was officially, completely alone. I had no family left. The loneliness was a real physical ache in my chest. The little girl inside me was crying for her mom and dad. But then, I took a breath. A deep, full breath. It was the first truly free breath I had ever taken. The air tasted clean. The loneliness was real, but it was infinitely better than the poison they had been feeding me for 33 years. I blocked Aunt Diane's number. I blocked Uncle Steve's. I blocked my cousins. I turned off my phone. I went into my kitchen, made a cup of tea, and sat on my back porch, listening to the birds. They had no power over me anymore. They had deployed their final weapon, the guilt, the shame, the fear of abandonment, and I had survived it. I was free. I knew this wasn't the end of the fight. They would try something else, but it didn't matter. They didn't know the woman I had become. They still saw the quiet, scared little girl. They had no idea what I was capable of. They had no idea I was just getting started. 2 weeks passed in a profound silence. My lawyer, Isabel, was in command. Their lawyer was in full retreat mode. He had seen our evidence and knew his clients had lied not just to me, but to him. He was scrambling to arrange a settlement. Isabel was not making it easy for him. They're desperate to avoid a public trial, Isabel explained over the phone. A trial means the bank records and the tax fraud become part of the public domain. They're terrified. Good, I said. They know we have them. But they are still your parents, and they're trying one last-ditch effort to control the narrative. They want to talk to you. I have nothing to say to them, I know, but they've summoned you for a final talk. At their house, this Sunday, for dinner, I almost laughed out loud. Dinner? After all this? They think they can guilt-trip me into submission over a pot roast? It's a classic narcissist's move, Isabel said. Get you on their home turf, ambush you with emotion, and hope you'll break. I considered it. The old me would have refused, would have hidden away. The new me saw an opportunity. Okay, I said. I'll go. Chloe. Isabel's voice sharpened with a note of warning. That's probably not a good idea. That's exactly what they want. I'll go, I repeated, on one condition. You come with me. There was a pause on the line. As your legal counsel? As my legal counsel. And I want Marco to come too, with his briefcase. Isabel was silent for a moment. Then she let out a low whistle. Oh, Chloe, you're not going there for dinner. You're going there to end this. I am, I said. That Sunday, I didn't take my own car. I met Isabel and Marco at a coffee shop a few blocks away. We drove in Isabel's car, a dark, expensive sedan that felt like an armored vehicle. Marco was quiet as always, with a slim black briefcase resting on his lap. It was filled with our ammunition, the will, the bank statements, the tax returns. The truth. Isabel was dressed in a sharp navy suit, looking every bit the warrior she was. I wore simple black pants and a white blouse. I felt surprisingly calm. I wasn't going to a family dinner. I was going to a surrender. We pulled up to my parents' house, the house where I was always made to feel second best. My father's car was in the driveway, along with my mother's, Leo's, and 2 others. They brought reinforcements, I noted. It was Aunt Diane and Uncle Steve. Of course they did, Isabel said dryly. They're staging an intervention to save you from yourself. Let me do the talking initially. You just stand there and look unbreakable. Marco, you're with me. Understood, he said. We walked up the familiar path. I didn't knock. I still had my key. I slid it into the lock and opened the door. We walked in. They were all there, assembled in the dining room. The table was set for a grand family meal. My mother stood at the head of the table, wringing her hands. My father stood beside her, his face flushed and angry. Leo was slouched in a chair, staring at his phone. Aunt Diane and Uncle Steve were on the other side, their faces arranged in grim, judgmental masks. They were all there, a jury ready to convict me. They all looked up as we entered. The sight of Isabel in her power suit and Marco with his briefcase stopped them cold. This was not part of their script. Chloe, my mother began, her voice high and false. You're late. And you've brought guests? They are not guests, I said, remaining in the doorway. Isabel and Marco flanked me like a wall. This is my lawyer, Isabel Croft, and my investigator, Marco Diaz. This is not a social call. My father puffed up his chest, a tactic he'd always used to intimidate. What is the meaning of this? You bring these people into my home? You summoned my client for a final discussion, Robert. Isabel's voice was pure ice, cutting through the stuffy air of the dining room. So here we are. You have 48 hours. My father looked utterly bewildered. 48 hours for what? I stepped forward then. I looked at my parents, at Leo, at the aunt and uncle who were now staring, mouths agape. I kept my voice low and steady. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I simply stated the facts. Drop your lawsuit against me. Return my $250,000 inheritance with interest. File amended tax returns for every single year you fraudulently claimed me as a dependent, and sign a legally binding agreement that you will never contact me again. Or what? My father snarled. Or, I said, in 48 hours we proceed with filing criminal charges. The room erupted. Criminal charges? My father roared. You'd send your own father to prison. You're a monster! Aunt Diane shrieked. My mother collapsed into theatrical, wailing sobs. Our daughter! Our own daughter! How could you do this to us after everything we've done for you? Leo shot up from his chair, his face blotchy and red. You're just jealous. You've always been jealous of me. You have this perfect house, this perfect life, and you can't stand that I'm getting married. You want to ruin us. His fiancée, Sophia, was standing in the doorway to the kitchen. I hadn't seen her there. She was holding a casserole dish, looking confused and scared. Leo? She said softly. What's happening? What inheritance? My family hadn't told her. Of course they hadn't. They'd fed her the same narrative of the crazy, jealous sister. Stay out of this, Sophia, Leo snapped. It's family business. It's financial business, Isabel corrected him. She looked at Marco. Now. Marco stepped forward and walked to the polished dining room table. He clicked open his briefcase. He took out the first document, a copy of my grandmother's will, and slid it onto the table. Exhibit A, Eleanor Henderson's will, stating her estate be left in 2 equal shares. He took out the next binder, filled with bank statements. Exhibit B, the trust account, showing $250,000 withdrawn by Robert and Susan Henderson in their own names as trustee fees and reimbursements. He slid the tax returns onto the table. Exhibit C, your tax returns, claiming Chloe as a dependent for 6 years while she was fully financially independent. That is a federal crime. My aunt and uncle were utterly silent, their faces pale. My father was sputtering, speechless. My mother was sobbing into her hands. Leo just stared at the papers. What is that? That's not real. Sophia walked forward, drawn by the undeniable weight of the evidence. She looked at the bank statements. She looked at Leo. Leo? What is this? Your parents? They stole from her? No, it's not. It was a misunderstanding, Leo stammered. You lied to me, Sophia whispered, her face ashen. You told me she was crazy. You told me she owed you the house. You told me your parents helped you. She looked at my parents with dawning horror. You stole your own daughter's inheritance, and you were going to use my wedding as an excuse to steal her house too. The silence in the room was absolute, the sound of a bomb detonating. Sophia looked at Leo, her eyes clear and resolute. You lied to me. She set the casserole dish down on the table. She twisted the engagement ring off her finger and placed it squarely on top of the damning bank statements. We're done, she said. She glanced at me just for a second. There was no pity in her eyes, only a shared, grim understanding. Then she turned and walked out the front door. Leo just stood there, his mouth hanging open. My father sank into a chair looking like a popped balloon. My mother's sobs were no longer a performance. They were the ugly, gasping sounds of a cornered animal. I looked at them all, the bullies, the liars, the people who had spent my life trying to crush me, and I felt nothing. No rage, no sorrow, just a vast, quiet emptiness. 48 hours, I said. Isabel will be awaiting your lawyer's call. I turned my back on them. Isabel and Marco followed. I walked out the front door and did not look back. The call came in less than 24 hours. It was their lawyer. He called Isabel, and I was in her office to hear it. She put him on speakerphone. His voice was weary, the sound of a man who hadn't slept. My clients, he began, are prepared to meet all of your clients' demands. They will withdraw their lawsuit immediately. And the countersuit? Isabel asked, her voice like steel. They will sign the repayment agreement. They will sign the no-contact agreement. They'll need some time on the tax issue, amending that many years of returns and the penalties. They have 1 week to file the amended returns, Isabel stated, and the repayment plan for the stolen inheritance begins in 30 days. That is non-negotiable. Understood, the lawyer said, his voice defeated. And Isabel, he added, just before hanging up, you were right. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. He hung up. I looked at Isabel. It's over. It's over, she confirmed, a real warm smile spreading across her face. You won, Chloe. You won with the truth. The next few weeks were a flurry of paperwork. I never saw my parents again. Everything was handled through our lawyers. They signed the papers, delivered by courier. They signed the dismissal of their lawsuit with prejudice, meaning they could never file it again. They signed the strict repayment agreement, calculated by a forensic accountant to include 12 years of lost interest. It was a staggering sum. They signed the no-contact agreement, a legal document barring them from calling, texting, emailing, or coming within 500 feet of me or my property. Violation meant immediate arrest. Leo had to sign it too. The final piece was the taxes. They filed their amended returns, and as Isabel had predicted, the IRS was not pleased. The bill for their back taxes, plus penalties and interest for fraud, was catastrophic. Justice wasn't a sudden bolt of lightning. It was paperwork. It was a series of signatures on dotted lines. It was cold, quiet, and absolute. The consequences for them, however, were loud. To pay the IRS and to make their first repayment installment to me, they were forced to sell their house. The house I grew up in. The house where they sat at that dining room table and plotted to steal my home. I saw the listing online. Motivated sellers, it read. The money they had stolen, the money they had built their comfortable life upon, was gone, and it took their house with it. They moved into a cramped 2-bedroom apartment, the kind of place they would have openly mocked in their previous life. Aunt Diane and Uncle Steve vanished. Once the truth was out and the money was gone, their so-called family loyalty evaporated. They wanted no association with theft and fraud. And Leo, his collapse was absolute. Sophia was gone for good. She had seen the truth and wanted no part of his family's toxicity. Leo, the golden child, had never faced a single real consequence in his life. He didn't know how. He couldn't hold a job. He had no real skills. He had always been propped up by my parents and my stolen money. Now the props were kicked out from under him. His engagement was over. His fun money was gone, and his parents were broke. He had nothing. He moved into that small apartment with my parents. The golden boy was back in his childhood bedroom, only now it was a tiny, spare room that smelled of defeat. And me? I walked away. The first repayment check arrived in the mail, a cashier's check sent from their lawyer's office. I held it in my hand. It wasn't just money, it was validation. It was the price of my pain. I deposited it and went home, to my house, the one I had built, the one I had defended. I walked through the quiet rooms, touching the walls, running my hand along the kitchen counters I'd installed. There were no more angry phone calls, no more manipulative texts, no more threats, no more guilt. There was only peace. I sat on my porch as the sun went down, feeling a strange, quiet sadness. Not for them, but for the family I never had, for the parents I deserved but never got. I let myself cry, not for what I had lost, because I had never truly had it, but for what I had survived. I grieved for the girl who had to learn plumbing because her parents stole her inheritance. I grieved for the young woman who ate instant noodles while her brother flew to Italy on her money. I grieved for the daughter who was called a disappointment by the people who were supposed to love her most. I cried for her, and then I let her go. The sun set, the air grew cool, and I went inside. I locked my door. I was safe. I was finally, completely free. 6 months passed. The world kept turning. It was spring. The repayment checks arrived every month like clockwork. I put every single one into a separate savings account and didn't touch it. It felt tainted. I worked. I saw my friends. I started dating again. I was living a quiet, normal life. My house was my sanctuary. I started planning a new project, a small greenhouse for the backyard, a place to grow things. The constant, low-level anxiety that had been my shadow for 33 years was simply gone. Then a certified letter arrived. It wasn't from their lawyer. The return address was a law firm I didn't recognize. Caleb Morgan, attorney at law. My heart hammered against my ribs. My first thought was, they're trying something new. I sat in my kitchen, staring at the envelope I'd had to sign for, my fingers trembling as I opened it. It wasn't a lawsuit. It was a letter. Dear Ms. Henderson, my name is Caleb Morgan. I was the personal attorney for your grandmother, Eleanor Henderson. I was the one who drafted her will and her trust agreement. I am now retiring and cleaning out my firm's old files. I have come across a box your grandmother left in my care. It was to be delivered to you and only you upon my retirement or my death. She was very specific about that. Inside the box, I also found the documents for a small checking account she opened in your name, which she alone controlled. It was separate from the trust, a personal gift to you. It seems it was overlooked by the trustees. It has been sitting untouched for 12 years. Please call my office to arrange for the transfer of the account and the delivery of the box. I read the letter 3 times. A box, a separate account. I called Mr. Morgan. He was an elderly man with a kind, shaky voice. "Oh yes, Chloe," he said. "Your grandmother. She was a very sharp woman. Very sharp. She didn't trust your father, not one bit. Said he was all charm and no spine." She said that? Oh yes. She tried to set up the trust to protect you both, made them co-trustees, hoping your mother would be a balancing influence. I see now that was a grave mistake. I am deeply sorry for what you went through. I wish I had known. You couldn't have, I said. Eleanor left this box for you, and this account. It's not a fortune, but it's yours. She wanted you to have it, free and clear of your parents. I went to his dusty old office that afternoon. He handed me a simple, old-fashioned bank book and a dark-stained pine box. "It was a pleasure to finally meet you, Chloe," he said. Your grandmother would be very, very proud of you. I cried in my car on the way home. I sat at my kitchen table and opened the bank book first. The account held $50,000. With 12 years of interest, it was now nearly $80,000. Money I never knew existed. Money they never knew existed. Money they could never touch. Then I opened the box. Inside was a small, leather-bound journal and a single folded note. I opened the note first. It was my grandmother's strong, clear handwriting. My dearest Chloe, if you are reading this, I am gone, and it means you are free. I have worried so much for you. Your father is a weak man, your mother a cold one, and your brother is a black hole. They will try to take what is yours. They will tell you that your strength is a problem, that your light is too bright. They will try to dim you, Chloe. They will try to make you small so they can feel big. Do not let them. I have left you money, and I fear they will steal it. So I have left this too. A small seed, just for you. A secret. Build what they can't destroy. Build your own life. Build your own home. Build your own peace. Your strength is not a flaw, Chloe. It is your legacy. Don't ever let them break you. I love you, Grandma Eleanor. I clutched the note to my chest and sobbed. She knew. All those years I thought I was a disappointment, the problem, the one she cut out. She knew. She saw me. She saw all of them for exactly who they were. She hadn't abandoned me. She had tried to protect me. And she had left me this final gift, this final message. Build what they can't destroy. I looked at the bank book. Then I looked at the checkbook for the savings account, holding the inheritance money, the tainted money. I knew exactly what to do. I took all the repaid money from the theft, every single penny, and I donated it to a local women's shelter, a place that helped women escape abusive families and build new lives. Let them build something new with it. I didn't want it. Then I took my grandmother's money, the clean money, the seed. I went to the bank, withdrew all of it, and went to the hardware store. I didn't just build a small greenhouse, I built a beautiful glass conservatory on the back of my house. I hired a crew this time, paying them with my grandmother's gift. I worked alongside them as we built it with strong beams and double-paned glass. It was a new sanctuary. I filled it with plants, with light. It was my quiet place, my peace. It wasn't built with their money. It wasn't built with their permission. It was built from truth. It was a legacy from a woman who saw my strength and knew that one day I would find it myself. Years passed. My life became my own, quiet, steady, and peaceful. My house was my home, and the greenhouse my sanctuary. I met a good man, a kind man, a carpenter who marveled at the house I had rebuilt. He loved my strong hands. We built a life together. My old family faded into ghosts. I heard through the grapevine that my parents lived in that small apartment until my father's health failed. The IRS penalties and the repayments to me had taken everything. Leo never recovered. He would occasionally get a new prepaid phone and text me, "Chloe, please, I'm in trouble, just need 500. Mom is sick, Dad is, please. You have so much, that big house. It's not fair." He was still the golden child, still the victim. He had learned nothing. I never replied. Not from anger or hate, but because there was nothing left to say. My silence was my boundary, the final wall I had built, one they could never tear down. This morning, I woke up early as the sun was rising. I made a cup of coffee and walked into my greenhouse. The light was spilling through the glass panels, warm and bright. The plants were green and vibrant. I have my grandmother's note framed now. It hangs on the wall in here. I read it sometimes. I read it this morning. Build what they can't destroy. I smiled. I thought about them, my father, my mother, my brother. They tried to steal the one thing I had built for myself. And in doing so, they lost everything: their home, their money, their reputation, their son's future. They lost it all because they were greedy, because they couldn't stand to see me have one single thing that wasn't theirs to control. I looked around at the life I had built, the peace I had found. I thought about all the people out there like me, the ones who are told they're difficult because they refuse to be small, the ones called selfish because they refuse to be used. If your family has ever wielded guilt and greed against you, remember this: your silence protects them, but the truth protects you. And peace, the quiet, simple peace of a life built with your own two hands, that is the sweetest revenge of all.